How did Martin Luther King Jr. impact the civil rights movement? By Irene Tejpal Sharma. Martin Luther King was a civil rights activist for the NAACP during the 1950s and 1960s, up until his assassination in 1968. He is most famous for his adoption and implementation of nonviolent resistance in the civil rights movement, and his eloquent speaking ability, displayed in several of his iconic civil rights speeches, such as his "I Have a Dream" speech, delivered in Washington, D.C. on the 28th of August, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on the 15th of January in the southern state of Alabama. King Jr.'s father was a church pastor, and King saw his father protest and fight against segregation non-violently on almost a daily basis, which heavily influenced his future methods of successful civil resistance. Martin Luther King was part of his high school debating team, and so in the process had extremely persuasive and refined public speaking skills, further bolstered by his extensive range of vocabulary. After leaving high school at the young age of 15, King decided to attend the black all-males college known as Morehouse College. Both his paternal and maternal grandfather had attended, and he would go on to pursue a bachelor's degree in sociology. He would later also pursue a doctorate of theology at Boston University. After this doctorate was finished, he returned to his hometown of Dexter in the South. Around this point in time, Rosa Parks made history by lighting the spark for the Montgomery bus boycott after she refused to give up her seat for a white passenger. King was a key figure and organizer of this protest, and after being arrested for leading the boycott, King began to attain national fame and prominence. After his release in 1963, King returned as a fully fledged member of the NAACP, and using the NAAC support, funding, and popularity, launched a march on Washington for jobs and freedom. At this march, he dictated his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, which, though was only 17 minutes long, echoed for decades upon decades as the freedom cry of civil rights activists all over the world. Throughout the 60s, King attended several more marches, which were all under the key premise of nonviolent resistance. After numerous instances of white violence against blacks continued, this nonviolent method of protest attracted even more sympathy and support from all walks of life. In the late 1960s, King also began to address other topics and key issues of American civilian and military doctrine, such as the Vietnam War and the growing economic crisis. In the spring of 1968, after visiting Tennessee to support on-strike black sanitary workers, King was assassinated by James Earl Ray, though it is believed by some, including his family, that James Earl Ray was not the gunman who actually assassinated Martin Luther King. President Lyndon B. Johnson declared a national day of mourning on April the 7th, and the third Monday of every January is now recognized in the States as Martin Luther King Day. Throughout his life, King received numerous awards and accolades, his most notable being the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Because of him, millions of African Americans received liberation from the harsh chains of segregation, potentially decades sooner, and today he is a figure of justice, freedom, and nonviolence, the civil rights activists all over the world. Thank you to the NAACP website for publishing the article that was the basis for the short fact file on Martin Luther King, and make sure to like and subscribe to the only history video I will probably ever make on this channel. Have a nice rest of your day, and remember, Martin Luther King was a good guy. Beep, 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 ba, 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 ba. Where do I press the done button? How did Martin Luther